My name is Violet, and I'm 37 years old. I've been married to my husband, Brandon, for 13 years. We live together with our daughter, Amy, and my mother-in-law. A few years ago, after my father-in-law passed away, we moved in with my mother-in-law. Unfortunately, it wasn't a smooth transition. Soon after settling in, she began constantly bothering me about dinner. "Is dinner ready yet? How much longer do we all have to wait?" she would nag, hovering in the kitchen and even sampling the food before it was done. "This pot roast is flavorless, just terrible," she'd complain. I'd respond, "I thought I seasoned it well." She'd scoff, "How could you have tasted it and still ended up with this? You're really bad at cooking. Brandon and Amy must feel so unlucky having to eat this. Poor Brandon, he must be struggling with such a useless wife. Now, hurry up and set the table." Despite all her complaints, she never once offered to help with dinner or any other chores. Instead, she relaxed all day while I handled everything. Ironically, once we sat down to eat, Brandon and Amy would praise the very meal she had criticized. "This is delicious," Brandon would say. "Yeah, Mom, it tastes great," Amy would chime in. Then, as if she hadn't just insulted my cooking, my mother-in-law would suddenly agree. "Yes, the seasoning is just right," she'd say, completely contradicting herself. Even though she constantly berated me when we were alone, she only spoke kindly to Brandon and Amy, likely to maintain their affection. "Violet is such a great cook," she would say in their presence. "She even took care of all the housework today, knowing my health isn't the best. She's such a capable wife, isn't she?" In reality, she simply forced all the responsibilities onto me. When I tried to deny her words, she kicked me under the table, hidden from view. Brandon, completely unaware of her true nature, would smile at me warmly, believing I was genuinely devoted to his mother. I felt completely bewildered. He adored his mom, especially after losing his father, and I just couldn't bring myself to tell him how she truly treated me. When we first moved in, Amy was thrilled. She adored her grandmother, and they spent a lot of time together playing and taking baths. As time passed, my mother-in-law's harassment escalated. One day, I returned from grocery shopping to find the house in complete chaos. "Mother-in-law, what happened? Why is everything such a mess?" I asked, startled. She smirked. "I was looking for something, and before I knew it, things got out of hand." It was obvious she had done it just to make things difficult for me. "Anyway, I'm heading out for dinner with friends. You clean up," she said before walking out the door, leaving me to deal with the mess. I ended up spending the entire day cleaning, unable to focus on anything else. When she got back, she glanced around and scoffed, "The laundry, dishes, and cleaning still aren't finished?" It was clear she had done this just to torment me. I clenched my fists, biting back my anger, and silently continued working. "Hurry up before everyone gets home," she taunted. "If Brandon realizes how incompetent you are, he might just divorce you." By the time I finished everything, dinner was running late. Brandon noticed and asked, "Are you feeling okay?" I hesitated. "No, but then I caught my mother-in-law glaring at me, a silent warning. "It was just a hectic day," I said instead. "Oh, I see, I'm sorry," Brandon said gently. His kindness touched me, but my mother-in-law didn't seem pleased. If anything, her mistreatment of me only intensified after that. Recently, it wasn't just me she targeted, she also started interfering in Amy's life. "So, you're trying to send Amy to a private middle school?" she asked one evening. "Yes, we are. Is there something wrong with that?" I replied. "It's cruel to make her study late every night for entrance exams. Stop it now," she demanded. "We're not forcing her. Amy wants to go to a private school," I explained. "Children should enjoy their childhood instead of being buried in books," she argued. "But she's working hard for her own future," I countered. As Amy's study sessions stretched into late nights and her tutoring schedule grew more demanding, our family time decreased, which seemed to irritate my mother-in-law. One day, she ordered, "Give up on the entrance exams. It's pointless." I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer. "Shouldn't we support Amy if this is what she wants?" I shot back. She seemed surprised since I had never openly opposed her before. "Amy's future has nothing to do with you, mother-in-law," I added firmly. Realizing she wasn't going to win this argument, she huffed, "Whatever, I'm going to pick up Amy." After that, she openly criticized me in front of Brandon and Amy. During dinner that night, she sneered, "This meal looks so plain. Is this all there is?" Brandon, unable to stay silent any longer, finally snapped. "Mom, stop complaining about Violet's cooking." Shocked by his response, she quickly backtracked. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," she mumbled. Not wanting to cause further conflict, I brushed it off. "It's fine." Later, as I washed the dishes, she came up to me and muttered, "I won't forget this," before retreating to her room. From that moment on, I lived in fear of what she might do next. Then, the day of Amy's exam results arrived. We nervously went to check the bulletin board. And there it was, Amy's number. "You did it, Amy, you got in." "Yay," she cheered. We were overjoyed. After all her hard work, Amy had successfully passed. "We need to celebrate," I exclaimed. "Amy, what do you want to eat?" "Steak," she said excitedly. "Should we order delivery?" I suggested. Everyone cheered in agreement as we headed home to celebrate. I placed an order for a high-quality steak from a steakhouse and arranged for it to be delivered. Since we also wanted to celebrate with a cake, I made a quick stop at a bakery. Before heading there, I called my mother-in-law and asked her to receive the steak delivery at home. "Got it, I'll take care of it," she assured me. Due to the extra stop, we arrived home much later than expected, well past lunchtime. We were all starving and eagerly looking forward to enjoying the steak. "I'm so hungry, I can't wait to eat the steak," Amy said excitedly. "Me too, it should be here by now, let's eat plenty, okay?" I reassured her with a smile. However, as soon as we reached home, we encountered my mother-in-law's friends leaving the house. "Thanks for the delicious meal," they said in unison before departing, leaving me with an uneasy feeling. A sense of dread crept over me as I hurried inside. When I reached the dining table, I was met with a complete mess. The food that was meant for us was nowhere to be found. Turning to my mother-in-law, I asked, "Did you eat the steak?" She looked at me without a hint of remorse and said, "Oh, you mean the steak delivery? I had lunch with my friends and enjoyed it. You can pay for it later." I was stunned. "How could you do this?" I shouted, unable to believe her audacity. She scoffed. "You were probably planning to just order delivery and slack off on housework. I won't allow that. This was supposed to be a special meal to celebrate Amy's achievement." I had told my mother-in-law in advance about Amy's entrance exam results being announced today. It seemed she had completely disregarded it, or simply didn't care. Moments later, Brandon and Amy entered the house. Amy, who had overheard our conversation in the hallway, was already in tears. "I heard everything Grandma said," her voice trembled with disappointment. She had been eager to share the good news with her grandmother, only to be met with such callousness. "Mother-in-law, today was Amy's middle school acceptance announcement. How could you forget something so important? That's just awful," I burst out, anger and frustration boiling over. For the first time, my mother-in-law looked unsettled. Her lack of remorse only deepened our disappointment. "Why today, Violet? Why didn't you remind me earlier?" she asked, her voice carrying a mix of guilt and defensiveness. "I did tell you," I said firmly, my voice filled with exhaustion. I no longer had the energy to be angry. Amy had put in so much effort to pass her exams. We had planned a celebration with her favorite meal, yet my mother-in-law had thoughtlessly taken it for herself. "I even called you about the delivery," I pointed out. Brandon, who had been listening, spoke up. "Mom, I can't believe you did this. Did you do it on purpose?" His tone was filled with disappointment. My mother-in-law paled as she realized Brandon was beginning to see the truth. In an attempt to smooth things over, she turned to Amy with a forced smile. "Let's go to the steakhouse, it's on me." But Amy shook her head, stepping back. "I hate Grandma," she cried, pushing her away before running to her room. The shock on my mother-in-law's face was evident. She stumbled backward, unable to process that her granddaughter, the one person she wanted to keep close, had rejected her so harshly. That night, I finally opened up to Brandon about everything: his mother's constant harassment, the unfair treatment, and how I had been enduring it alone. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, guilt and concern filling his eyes. "I didn't want to put a strain on your relationship with her," I admitted. He let out a deep sigh. "I'm sorry, I should have noticed sooner. You don't have to endure this anymore." That's when Brandon suggested we move out. Amy, too, said she didn't want to live with her grandmother anymore, so the decision was made without hesitation. On the day we packed our belongings, my mother-in-law entered the room, looking desperate. "Are you really leaving?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," I replied without hesitation. You must be happy to be rid of me, she said bitterly. I don't hate you, I admitted, but right now, I just need you to move aside. I have packing to do. Instead of leaving, she suddenly clung to me, tears streaming down her face. Please don't go. I'll apologize for everything. Just don't take Amy away from me, she pleaded desperately. Seeing her like that, I made a suggestion. We're moving to my parents' house. If you really can't bear to be apart from Amy, you can come with us. I knew she was intimidated by my father's strict nature, so I never expected her to agree. But to my surprise, she did. That's fine with me, she said quickly. Her desperation to stay near Amy outweighed any fear she had of my father. Brandon looked at me and said, if she causes any trouble, feel free to kick her out. And so, we all moved to my parents' house. From the moment we arrived, my father made it clear that he disapproved of my mother-in-law. He never confronted her directly, but his cold demeanor and strict presence kept her on edge. Whenever my mother or I asked for help with housework, she immediately complied, something she had never done before. Watching her sudden change in behavior almost made me laugh. For a while, life was peaceful, but one day, she reached her breaking point. I can't live here anymore, she announced. Your father is terrifying, and Amy, she won't even talk to me. Brandon's patience had run out as well. His attitude toward his mother had grown noticeably colder. Then, she made a desperate move. Amy, come home with me, she pleaded, attempting to pull Amy away. I immediately intervened. Stop it, can't you see Amy doesn't want to go? She chooses to stay here with us. Just then, my father entered the room. What do you think you're doing? Knock it off, he boomed. Frightened by his commanding presence, my mother-in-law froze in place. You're only here because you wanted to stay close to your granddaughter, but if you ever try to take Amy against her will again, I will call the police, my father warned. I didn't mean it that way, she stammered. But Amy had reached her limit. Leave, she shouted, I don't want to see you anymore. My mother-in-law's face crumpled as she realized she had lost the one person she had been clinging to. Without another word, she turned and left in tears. Now, she's back in her own home, living alone. Over time, she withdrew from social life, and even her neighbors and friends distanced themselves from her. As for us, life has never been better. Amy is thriving in her private school, and Brandon has grown close to my parents, especially my father, with whom he now enjoys drinking together almost every night. Looking back, I wish I had spoken up to Brandon sooner. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay tuned.